Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/entitled people, where Karens think they rule the world and nobody else matters. And in today's episode, guys, you know the deal. Karens are causing trouble left and right, and one woman basically attacks OP with her wheelchair, and it only gets worse from there. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I hope you don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your Reddit post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this is a long story from years ago when I was a funeral director, running a new funeral home single-handedly. This story involves pregnancy loss, by the way. So my policy has always been to never turn a profit on services for infants and children. My time and facilities and even embalming supplies are free. I only charge my cost for the casket, urn, etc. But if outside vendors have a fee or something, there's nothing I can do about that. I'll bust my ass for no pay if it means I can contribute to the healing process on something so tragic. So one day, I get a call for a stillborn, very premature. I'll spare you the details, but let's just say I spent about 12 hours and invented a whole new embalming technique, making the baby viewable. Now, I was pretty proud of myself, and it felt really satisfying to give these folks the last view of her. Now, they got about 30 very touching seconds to grieve over the body of their child before the father's mom starts on this embarrassing routine. So the grandmother wanted to know why the casket was so plain, and I explained that's what the parents chose. She then says to me, well, you should have given them a free upgrade. They just lost a baby, you know. They deserve better. Also, the dress they brought in was for a 3-month-old infant, not a 32-week preterm, so I had to do some alterations to make it work. The woman then starts yelling at me saying, where are the sparkly ruffles? I chose the dress for sparkly ruffles. She was shrieking at this point, while everybody that was mourning thought I put the kid in there headless. She continues sobbing, saying, I just wanted to see my grandbaby in the dress I bought her. So after consulting with the parents, who were just like, give her what she wants. So I took the casket into the back and added the ruffles that I'd cut off the dress into this really sweet little nest of lace I'd brought from home, so she wouldn't look so small and lonely in a casket far too large for her. Grandmother sniffed and said, I suppose that'll do. But what about the flowers? She should have lilies, not cheap, ugly roses. Now, I just want to say that I came in an hour early to create a casket spray the right size with roses and ferns and floral foam that I bought with my own money because of a complicated issue with my narc boss. It wasn't expensive, just pink bunch roses, but it was lovely and to scale. So we go to the cemetery. Now, this particular cemetery had a section for infants, and they did not charge for the plot. But you'd have to pay their crew to dig the grave and set up the tent and chairs and all that. The couple said they were too broke for that, so I'd been at the cemetery the night before digging a tiny grave. So Karen sees this and she screams, where are the chairs? Where's the awning? Is our baby not important enough to treat her burial with even a little respect? I just apologized and kept my tone even, doing my best to pacify her until it was finally over and they left. The parents both hugged me and thanked me, and they called me an angel and apologized for his mom. So about a month later, the grandma wrote to our state licensing board to complain, saying I promised her son a free headstone to make up for all my screw-ups and I'd never delivered. Obviously, I said no such thing, and the board is used to dealing with loonies, so nothing came of it. But what a way to say thanks for thousands of dollars in donated services. My freaking goodness, guys, like, as if losing a baby wasn't enough. Like, the parents had to deal with that woman on that day. And seriously, I just want to say that OP is such an amazing person for doing that for people. Like, wow. And this person comments, if grandma is ever your client, the parking lot dumpster can be her burial site. Yikes. Like, out of all the days to complain, you'd think that on a day like this where people come to mourn, that Karen would hold her tongue for just a few minutes. So my great aunt set up a savings account for all of her female relatives. In our culture, education for women is not really valued, and she thought that was BS. She lived with her father in London where she was educated. She then went on to attend university and became a doctor, married a British man, and moved to America and had a great life. She funded the education of as many of her nieces and grandnieces that she could, and when she passed away, she left money for every girl relative she could. However, my entitled parents managed to access the accounts that were set up for my sister and I. They then used it to pay for my brother's wedding. Now, my sister didn't care because she got married 2 years out of high school and she had no intention of going to college. But when I graduated, I went to the bank to get my money for school and it was almost all gone. There was like $13,000 left. So I asked my parents about it and they said they needed the money, so they had to borrow it. I finally found out where the money went and I was furious. I ended up getting student loans and moved out, and apparently I'm a great source of shame to them and I don't give two Fs. I'm currently suing them for the money that was left for me and my entire family is against me. They all think that I'm a complete a-hole for airing private family business in public, and that I'm putting money ahead of family. My friends are all on my side, but they don't really get my culture, and neither do I, to be honest. So my brother calls me up and he offered to pay for my university if I just dropped the lawsuit. I agreed, as long as we had a legally binding contract, and he said that I was being an a-hole for not trusting him. I then said that he shouldn't have accepted my money for his wedding, and it's causing all kinds of embarrassment in our community. I am somewhat ashamed to be doing this, but I don't want to have this debt that I shouldn't have, so am I the a-hole? So yeah, I don't think OP is the a-hole for wanting what was rightfully hers. Like, her great aunt left her that money to use for her education, and her parents had no right to access that money to pay for their son's wedding. And who knows what else they spent that money on that they didn't tell her about. And it's also funny how they said they needed it and they borrowed it when it was blatantly stolen from OP. All I can say is whatever the outcome, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of tension between OP and her family. This story happened years ago. At the time, I was a 14-year-old female with my brother who is 12 and my mother and father. It's important to note that my father and brother are both disabled, with EDS, a chronic joint pain condition, making them use wheelchairs in places that require a lot of walking, like amusement parks, for example. Whenever me and my family go to amusement parks, we always get this pass that allows families with disabled to cut in lines to some extent. It's not used for families with infants. Also, we were pulling my brother around in his wheelchair. So in order to cut lines and use the pass, you have to go to the exit and enter through there. We made our way to the exit where another family was, with 2 elderly women in strollers, and put my brother's wheelchair in park. Now, my brother is able to walk perfectly like anybody else, but he uses a wheelchair when his legs hurt too badly. And in comes Karen. So as we're waiting, the Karen walks up behind us and she puts her stroller in park, which holds a little baby, looking to be about 1 or 2 years old. Now, I expected her to leave her child's scooter and go back in line, but she waits right there. A worker then comes to the exit and signs our pass, and then Karen tries to follow us in, but he stops her asking her for her pass. Karen says, "I don't have a pass. I was just leaving my child here." She says that pointing to her stroller. And that's when the employee says, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm afraid you need a pass to enter. This is for the disabled, so I'm gonna need you to..." She then cuts him off, points to my brother who's with me and my mom and says, "Well, he can clearly walk. He's not disabled, so why is he allowed in?" The worker tells her, "Well, we don't need to judge, but they do have a paper stating he's disabled, and you don't have a paper, so I can't let you in." Karen says, "I don't need a damn paper." She says this trying to push her way past the worker. She says, "I just had a baby and it's hard to walk, so I need to be let in this way." She then points to my brother and says, "That young boy is perfectly fine. He needs to be put in line." Now, her child, once again, is way older than a newborn. The employee tells her, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you need a pass." That was the last thing I heard before we got on and had the time of our life. We decided to go home after having our fun time, and we head to the entrance of the park, when all of a sudden I hear a familiar voice. It's Karen. She screams, "Hey, you!" We all then turn to look, and behind us, she was pushing her little child to catch up with us. And my mom asked, "Is there something you need, ma'am?" Karen says, "Yes, I want your pass." She then said that, putting her hands out to retrieve the paper. And my mom says, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we can't do that, but you can get one at the front of the park." And that's when Karen snaps her fingers and she says, "No, I want your paper. You are lying about being disabled. I don't believe a single word you told that employee. Your son can walk." My whole family's expression of shock made the Karen even more angry, and she says, "I'm gonna get you kicked out of the park and be arrested for lying. You can't lie about being disabled." My brother's in a wheelchair and my father's in an electric scooter with a cane visibly in its basket. And that's when my mom says, "I'm sorry, what? Who are you to assume if we're disabled or not?" At this point, an employee passes by and Karen taps them and points to us screaming, "Those people are lying about being disabled. They need to be kicked out of the park." They then look at us, then look back at Karen and say, "Ma'am, I believe they're disabled." Karen says, "But their son can walk. Kick them out right this instant." She then starts screaming, pointing to my brother and telling him to get up and walk. And that's when the employee called for some people to come over. Now this part I don't remember much, but what I do remember is 2 cops came over and Karen starts screaming at them. One of the cops came over, saw our pass, and told us we were okay to go. And the other tried to calm the woman down. She got so violent and loud that she was escorted out of the park and they asked if we wanted to press charges. Of course my parents said yes, and we rode the whole way home laughing about what happened. Yeah, so some people need to mind their own damn business, guys. Like, all Karen needed to know was that that family had a pass that allowed them to cut lines, and that should have been it. There was no need to follow them, harass them, and try to get that poor boy to stand up and walk. Like, what the heck is she thinking? And I'm glad Karen got a nice meeting with the cops, and she was the one who was kicked out. When I was in college, I used to work for Walmart. Initially as a courtesy clerk. The town I lived in easily exceeded 100 degrees during the summer months, and by state law, the store had to give us a 5-minute break inside to cool down after 2 rounds of collecting carts and provide us with beverages so we could stay hydrated. The beverage they usually gave us was Gatorade, which is relevant to the story. So after working a couple of hours, it was time for me to take my first official 15-minute break. So I filled a cup with Gatorade and proceeded to make my way to the break room. The closest person to me was one of our regular shoppers, an older lady, the Karen of the story, who had Lou Gehrig's disease. Because of this, she had to use an electric wheelchair, and she lived at the local assisted living center. Due to her condition, there were 2 rules that she had to follow whenever she shopped in the store to prevent accidental collisions with people. Number 1, she must always be accompanied by an employee from the assisted living center whenever she shopped at the store. Number 2, she had to keep the wheelchair speed to one of the lower settings. Knowing the rules and seeing how far down the aisle she was, I knew I could get across quick enough before she got anywhere near me. But after taking a step or 2 into the aisle, I noticed 2 things. Number 1, she wasn't being accompanied by an employee from the assisted living center. And number 2, she was driving her wheelchair much faster than she was supposed to. She was on a collision course with me. So I instinctively tried to jump back out of the way to avoid getting hit, but it was way too late. She hits me, I fell to the ground, and spilled my Gatorade all over the wheelchair. The lady loses control of the chair and she starts spinning around in circles. She's flailing her arms and screaming with what limited mobility she had, and she nearly hit me a second time, but I managed to roll out of the way. I knew I had to try to stop her before she hit someone else, so I grabbed the handlebars on the back of the wheelchair, hoping I could at least slow her down. At this point, several coworkers and shoppers quickly rushed in to stop the lady, who seemed to be okay, just startled. But when I tried to stand up, 2 male shoppers held me down, and one said to me, "Everything's gonna be just fine." And that's when I heard, "Oh my goodness, somebody call 911. Now I just laid there wondering what the heck happened to me. Like, sure, I was gonna have a nice bruise on my hip from when I hit the floor, but besides that, I felt fine. I quickly discovered why the customers were panicking. The customers who witnessed the incident thought I busted my head open when I hit the ground. A member of management eventually showed up to document the incident, and after I gave him my statement, I was able to take my break. I was given an extra 5 to 10 minutes so I could clean up and recuperate from what just happened. And this is where I thought this story would end, but I was wrong. So a couple of weeks later, I was called back to the manager's office. The store manager, who we'll call Kate, told me to take a seat and asked me if I remembered the incident a few weeks ago. I just chuckled and said, "How can I forget?" Kate then tells me, "So that lady was just in my office and she wants to sue the store, claiming she suffered mental distress from the incident. She also wanted your employment with the company terminated, claiming that you were the one responsible for the collision." Hearing Kate say that, I was speechless. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But Kate quickly put my mind at ease by saying, "Don't worry, you're not in any trouble. We do have the security footage from the incident." I reminded her of the rules that she knew she had to follow whenever she shopped at the store to prevent collisions from happening, but she decided to break them anyways. I also told her that she should consider herself lucky that she hit a store employee who only suffered minor injuries. Kate said that since I was the employee involved in the incident, that she thought I'd want to know what the handicapped Karen attempted to do, and that I would get a kick out of it. That definitely sounds like something a Karen would do, guys. Drive recklessly through Walmart, hit a random person, and then try to sue the store. Why am I not surprised? So I don't know whether to laugh or cry over this entire situation that happened to unfold in the last 6 weeks. I am a 23-year-old male, and I have a coworker who I've been friends with for 4 years, pretty much since I started working at the factory that I'm still in. Robert's a 32-year-old male who just had his first daughter, Chelsea, 2 months, after 4 boys. The boys are dang near carbon copies of him. They have bleach blonde straight hair, freckleless skin, and I swear they were just born with tans. His wife Danielle is 32 years old, and she's a tight curled redhead with freckles for days, and she burns like there's no tomorrow. Their daughter from the jump had a full red head of hair that's already starting to curl. When I got to meet her, she was 2 weeks old, and I was surprised. I'm a fellow redhead myself, with long curly red hair. And I said something along the lines of, "Oh my goodness, it finally happened, the red is alive," just to be dramatic and funny. And Robert goes, "Yeah, don't bank on that staying, my genes are strong after all." Hearing that, Danielle rolled her eyes, and I shrugged it off as a weird joke at first, but the entire time I was there, he pretty much kept going on how his genes would prevail. So jump forward, Chelsea is now 5 weeks old. And for 3 weeks, every single day, Robert would complain about how little himself he sees in his daughter and how much of a stranger she is for that. And some days, he thinks he's looking at another person's baby. He only ever wanted to complain to me about it. So after the 5th day in a row, I tried to explain how genetics work, pretty much saying that genes aren't going to always drastically go one way. 3 days ago, Robert came into work just itching for an argument with everybody. Our mutual friend Jesse asked him what the heck his deal was on our break, after he shouted at another friend for asking a work-related question. At that, he blew up saying he knows Chelsea's not his, that his cheating wife just won't admit it, and he knows exactly who she's effing around with. He then looks over at me, points at me, and yells at me to get my ass outside. And I asked, why? He then starts screaming that he's not stupid, and he knows I've been trying to kiss his ass to avoid this beatdown. Now, something you should know about me is I'm gay. I have a male fiance, I have pride stickers all over my car, and outside of work, I'm just a parrot of colorfulness. Hearing him say that, I just couldn't help but laugh at him. It was just so bizarre, and I know I wasn't the only one looking at him like he was insane. I told him that Chelsea is literally half of Danielle's genetics, that Danielle is not an effing incubator for his genetics, and then I asked him why he was so obsessed with their kids needing to look exactly like him. I asked him what's the point of that. He wouldn't answer, and he just kept telling me to get up before he dragged me out to the parking lot to give me a beating. I told him I'm not gonna fight him on something this ridiculous and asked if he was trying to get fired. He then starts demanding that I take a test, and if the baby's mine, he's gonna scrap the baby and his wife. And again, I asked him if he was completely serious. He said he was, because I spend so much time with Danielle. And he's not necessarily wrong. She's a part of the friend group I'm a part of, and there's 5 of us in total, and we do artsy stuff, try new places, and just hang out and do whatever, but never stuff like that, and she knows I'm gay. I told him to go take a test for himself, and he argued that he's not paying for a test that he knows the truth to. I told him, well, I'm not paying for a test, and then asked which redhead in the factory was he gonna accuse next. The exchange ends when our shift manager comes in for her break. I texted Danielle and told her exactly what happened, and the next day was my day off, so my phone was on silent and I slept in. I woke up to Elliot, my partner, getting off the phone and telling me that I should check my phone. I had been bombarded with dozens of messages and missed calls and threatening voicemails from Robert because Danielle had kicked him out. He says he's gonna find where I live and kick my ass for destroying his household. He had decided to get Elliot's number out of Danielle's phone to tell him his version of events. I'd already told Elliot the night before, so he was just baffled how certain Robert was. Danielle did text me a few times, apologizing on his behalf, and then updating me that they were getting a test and she's filing for a divorce, and that she has no idea why he'd think such a thing. My partner thinks it's hilariously sad that Robert destroyed his marriage like this because he doesn't understand genetics. So the next morning while getting ready for work, Robert texted me that he has the money, and when the test comes back with the truth, again, he'll find me and he'll F me up in court for what I've done. He also kept saying that I've ruined not only his life, but his kids' lives and everybody in their families' lives too. The idiot has really gone around telling everybody that I'm the dad of his daughter. Again, I'm gay. So I did agree to the test, and I told him he might as well quit his job and just vanish after this, because it's gonna be really embarrassing when I walk in with the paperwork and wave it around saying that I'm not the daddy to his red-headed child. And then he's gonna have to explain to everybody, including his own children, what an absolute idiot he is. Our friends have been giving me the cold shoulder all day, pretty much saying that I'm a trash friend for going straight to his wife and getting him thrown out of his own house. But yeah, I'm the trash friend and a trash person, I guess. I don't think OP is trash at all for doing what he's doing. Like, I mean, they're friends, they hang out quite often, so it's not surprising that he went to Danielle and was like, hey, can you help me sort out this mess because it's freaking ridiculous that your husband is accusing me and making me go through with a paternity test. Like, if I were in OP's shoes, I would tell that dude that he's insane, I'm not doing a damn test, and he needs to do the test. And you know what? Finding out that he's the father isn't gonna make this end well. Like, I somehow have a feeling that that man is gonna convince himself that the DNA place is in on the whole thing or something. Like, I don't even know what to say. Guys, let me know what you would do if you were in OP's shoes. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our slash entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the crazy stories today. I hope you didn't shake your heads too hard, and if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'm gonna link it right here. It's in r slash I don't work here lady, where a psycho Karen decides to destroy a whole store and attack people because OP told her that he won't serve her because he's not an employee. It's a crazy, crazy story as always, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.